Navigating economic transformation is a multifaceted endeavor, entailing the reshaping of both economic and social frameworks. At this defining moment in Nigeria's 60-year history, the country must adopt a different approach to sustained economic growth and development. A sturdy blueprint accompanied by a viable execution scheme stands as a fundamental requirement to steer the course towards triumph. What are the components pivotal for an effective economic transformation? What will ensure the well-being of the populace? Welcome to the opening plenary of the 29th Nigerian Economic Summit. Plenary 1, an agenda for economic transformation. This plenary is interpreted for a virtual audience in Pidgin, Hausa, Igbo, French, and Yoruba. Follow the on-screen instructions to gain access. Pathways to sustainable economic transformation and inclusion. Welcome to this plenary session.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming straight back in so we can commence the next plenary, which is a ministerial dialogue. On stage with me is the Coordinating Minister of the Economy and the Finance Minister, Mr. Wale Edun. Welcome, sir. We also have the Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Mr. Atiku Bagudu Abubakar, and we have the Minister of State for Agriculture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
This afternoon we will be talking about the 8 priorities that we have heard Mr. President speak about. And for a start, I will ask each minister on stage to give us an opening statement as it concerns your particular role and your ministry in relation to the 8 priorities which has been railed out. So, Coordinating Minister, may I ask you to go first? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amina. Good afternoon. I'll say, honorable ministers, all protocols observed. May I start with a preamble, which I think I'm duty-bound to comment on. How long do I have?
2 minutes.
So I will still just say that 30 years ago, I was here. I was very optimistic, along with some other gray heads here. And those who are not here, Mr. Dr. Suleiman is here, along with the likes of the young people then, in the early 30s, who this country did very well by, the Atidor Petersides, the Fola Adeolas, the Gbenga Oyebodis, and so on and so forth. And we're very optimistic. And we heard pretty much what we have heard today. But there's a missing ingredient. Just like for the Spanish football team up till about 2010, when they won the World Cup, there was a missing ingredient. They had everything, the talent, and so on and so forth. I think the missing ingredient for us was a certain type of leadership. And I think you heard earlier today that this may very well be the leader that can bring us all together and take this country forward. I also want to thank the Economic Summit team, particularly the likes of Ijoma Taylor, Sonyade Okoli, who determinedly pushed and pushed to make sure that Mr. President was in a position to have enough information to keep his promise. It's not easy delivering a president. I think they did very, very well. I just did my job. I can't imagine being here and I didn't deliver the president and facing you all. So it was the fear of that that propelled me. In terms of the economy, the priority areas are there, and they all boil down to improving livelihoods, delivering economic outcomes, the human resources aspect, and of course, a fairer and more level playing field, particularly for young people to express themselves, as we had the opportunity in our days. But there are enough brilliant people here that no matter what the conditions, they will excel. In order to provide the platform for the priority areas, the first thing that is happening is economic stabilization, focusing on, first of all, the fiscal side, revenues from various sources, the traditional sources, oil, but also taxation and so forth. Then on the monetary side, the governor of central bank is not here. Mr. President is somebody that believes in rule of law, and that includes respecting the autonomy of the central bank, both in the letter and in the spirit. However, it is one government, and at the end of the day, foreign exchange belongs first and foremost to the federal government, not to the central bank. So I can speak on that. And finally, in terms of stabilization, the other area is getting a hang of the fiscal deficit, making sure that the deficit is reduced, making sure that the deficit is funded in a conventional way. And that means dealing with ways and means. Ways and means is essentially outside the law, and it is not a sustainable way to be funding the federal budget. So those are the areas in which the government has a plan that is coherent and that will provide the basis for investment and growth. Thank you. Please clap.
So thank you, Honorable Minister. I will come back to you in a minute and ask you to give us maybe some more details with regards to access to capital and the sort of alignment between fiscal and monetary policies, for which we will have a breakout session today. But since you spoke about it, talking about the responsibilities, I think it's worth probably elaborating on that a little more for the audience, so that people know what to expect in terms of that alignment which you have spoken about, particularly as it relates to respecting the rule of law. But I will come back to you, so I'll give you a minute to chew on that while I take the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning. And my question to you, Honorable Minister, is we have heard a $1 trillion economy is possible in 2026. To achieve this, we would like to believe that there is a development plan which the government is working with, which is most likely all-encompassing. We would assume that that plan not only talks about the financial responsibility of government, but also the social responsibility of government. So can you tell us a little bit about the plan to get to 1 trillion in 2026?
Thank you, Amina. And just speak. Yes, my colleagues and brothers. You heard when the president said you inherit both assets and liabilities. One asset that we inherited the Agenda 2050, which was put together by the private sector, public sector, civil society organizations. And on the back of that Agenda 2050, which is our vision of where we want to be by 2050, a series of national development plans, 5-year each were planned. So the first one is the 2021 to 2025. Of course, after that is the medium-term expenditure framework, which is a 3-year medium-term framework that is always provided by the government, as well as the 1-year plan, which is a budget. So the first thing is, Mr. President, in the institutional alignment, brought both the 1-year planning and this medium and long-term plans in one place. And secondly, these plans were drawn in appreciation of the fact that we are a federation. So there are, and this federation, and the ingredient of the federation actually, and the planning drive itself from the Constitution. We have an organ called the National Economic Council, which is the federating units meeting quite often monthly in order to discuss economic affairs and align planning. Equally, the Constitution provided under fundamental objectives of state, the economic objectives that are an irreducible minimum which the nations agrees upon. And in all this, what it shows is that if we recognize our diversity, appreciate it, coordinate it, as contained in a legislation, the National Planning Commission Act 1993, and the current attempt to amend it as a National Planning Act 2023. The whole idea is to appreciate that the sanctity of planning and an irreducible commitment to that implementation of a plan is what will give the private sector comfort that, yes, we can put our money, yes, we can think about 5 years, yes, we can think about 10 years. And I think that is being provided. So the 8-point agenda that have been priority areas are consistent with our long-term Agenda 2050. And in any case, in consultation with the private sector, as part of what is being done today, we will also examine the National Development Plan for 2021 to 2025 to ensure that it reflects both the renewed hope agenda, the policy advisory committees we set in, and our national aspiration. What it shows, our history around the world have shown that countries can achieve the kind of growth we are praying, we are hoping for. So it's not new. And I think with the determination that one is seeing around the $1 trillion economy is possible.
Thank you. Now, Honorable Minister of State, hunger is real.
Absolutely.
Right. People are struggling to put food on the table, not just in terms of grappling with the reforms which we recognize and appreciate that we must go through to get the nation working again. But food has become a difficult topic, so to say, across sectors, across strata. It doesn't matter if you're young, old, middle class, food is a problem. We know that one of the priorities of this administration is food security. What are you doing specifically about food security? Can you tell us in 5 minutes, please?
Thank you very much. First, let me appreciate the Nigerian Economic Summit Group for bringing us here at this particular point in time. For us in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, you will recall until now, it used to be called Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. So the tweaking of the name is to underscore the importance of food security in the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And of course, the 8-point agenda in terms of prioritization, food security is key to the functions of the ministry. And of course, we have economic growth and job creation. And we also have poverty eradication and inclusivity. Now, like you rightly said, food is key. And I'm sure from morning to now, most people probably here must have had their breakfast. And if they've not had their breakfast, they will have been thinking of food in the next couple of minutes or hours. So food is key. Now, for us in the ministry, the agricultural sector is facing very serious challenges. And I think the first challenge, like we all know, is the fact that we are having low productivity in terms of most of our food security crops. A situation where farmers in some other climes are getting double what our farmers are getting here is something we consider unacceptable. Now, the second challenge is the fact that we have, flooding. The impact of climate change, like we all know, desertification from the north, flooding in the middle, and coastal erosion in the south, which the president aptly put when he attended the UN General Assembly. Now, for us in the ministry, we realize there is serious inflation, food inflation. The cost of food have gone up, perhaps because of the initial shock of the removal of fuel subsidy. A lot are not in place. So what we have done is the next opportunity available to us. The rainy season is almost gone, but the dry season, for which Nigeria has very tremendous potentials on, we decide we have to focus on it. And I'm happy to say that for the dry season program, we are starting with wheat, rice, rice, and then soybean and vegetables. That is various tomatoes and all the other leaf vegetables. Now, what we realize is that for the farmer, what are their challenges? Their key challenges usually is the input. And apart from input, sometimes some of the programs we have, when they are not properly targeted, they end up being taken over by what we call briefcase farmers. Immediately we announced that we are having a dry season program. We've received several proposals from people who never own farm, and we are worried. So that explains why in the ministry we've decided we need to go back to basics. And I think 2 weeks ago, the Minister of Agriculture, my brother Senator Awukari, was in Jigawa State. Fortunately, the Jigawa State governor is here. He's giving us very tremendous support for the wheat program. And I think Jigawa State is offering us 40,000 hectares of land. I think it's even more now from the field visit. So what we are doing in the ministry is we realize agriculture is done on the land. So no more paper agriculture, no more computer-dressed agriculture. We want to get down to where the farmers are. And I must say this, the Nigerian farmer is passionate about his farming. They have the willingness to do the farming. They are ready to do the farming. What is the problem? All they need is input that should get to them at the time they need it. And I think somehow we have decided in some of the programs that have happened in the past, we've not really been able to get a situation where we are able to get farmers to get this input when and how they want it. So in the ministry, we are working out a framework that will enable us to have what we call the last mile input delivery system. The business people are doing last mile delivery, and then why can't we do it for the farmers? So I think these are some of the issues we are having. Fertilizer is is a big issue, but we are also working around that to see what we can do so that farmers can also have access to fertilizer. But the last point I would like to make here is the fact that we want agriculture to be seen as a business. And the only way agriculture can be seen as a business is when government creates that enabling environment. So I know we've had the ease of doing business, and we say, why not ease of doing agriculture in Nigeria also? Why not? What are those things that will make doing agriculture in Nigeria easy for those who want to invest? So we're going to look into all of these things, and I'm sure in the course of the coming months, perhaps members of this very elite group will definitely see us knocking at their doors so that we can get insight into those things that, when done by government, we ease participation in the agricultural value chain development that this government is seriously planning for.
Thank you. You can be sure that private sector will be happy to partner with you. I think that's the reason why we're here. We want to change the structure of our economy, and we are willing, we are able, and we'll be more than happy to deliberate further with you through the NESG. Now, coming back to you, Coordinating Minister. I had mentioned that I would like you to probably talk a little more about the alignment between the fiscal and the monetary policies that we should be expecting. But you are also the Coordinating Minister of the Economy. I'm not sure I envy you, because given where we are today, those are some very big shoes to carry. Because we don't have too much time, I would like you to speak to us, private sector in this room, and tell us specifically one thing that you would like to look back on in 12 months, or maybe when we come for the next summit, which will be our 30th summit, to say, this is one thing that government collaborated with private sector on, and we can actually take a view on that. What would you expect from us? We are willing to partner with government, but being the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, it's very difficult times, tough times, but what we're saying is, as private sector, we're here to help. What is your expectation?
Thank you very much. The partnership is very welcome, and it's already in progress. Let me say that in responding to your question, may I also have permission to deal with the elephant in the room, which effectively is, and I see the governor of Central Bank walks in, and I am sure you'll invite him. I'm sure you'll invite him to the podium. There's a seat for him here.
In that case, I will interrupt you, Honorable Minister, and I'd like to invite the CBN governor to join us on stage. We are.
So, as I was saying, in terms of, let me take it like this, in terms of coordination, monetary and fiscal policy. In terms of monetary and fiscal policy, we all know there are consequences for monetary policy. If the governor of Central Bank feels that in delivering it on his own mandate within his own terms of reference, he has to increase interest rates, of course, that has an effect on the fiscal side, because the government is a borrower, its debt service costs go up, and so on and so forth. There is coordination. There are two coordinating roles. There's a coordinating Minister of the Economy, there's a coordinating Minister of Social Welfare. In our role as coordinating the economy, we do have a meeting where we sit down with the core of the economy, including the Governor of Central Bank, Minister of Power, Minister of Trade, Minister of Agriculture, and so on and so forth. And so we meet regularly, we try to make sure that objectives are aligned, we track priorities, and we look at the sequencing of the various actions. So that coordination is going on. In terms of monetary fiscal policy, the 43 items that have recently been allowed to, as legitimate and eligible for foreign exchange, is really an example of the kind of overlapping that will not take place under the presidency of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a monetary instrument, which is foreign exchange, was used to deliver a fiscal objective, which was to protect domestic industry and to encourage local output. That is being rectified. The ban has been lifted, but on the fiscal side, there is a study under a very able Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee led by the very able Taiwo Oyedele. Is one of yours, and that's part of the partnership, in fact. So to make sure that industries that need to be protected are protected, to make sure that industries that actually need to import have tariff regimes which allow them to import, and so on and so forth. So that's part of the correction. We are already in partnership with the private sector. Mr. President announced that he had that he has taken measures to deal with the illiquidity in the foreign exchange market, which we know is very problematic at this time. As I say, the governor of Central Bank is here, but in the coordinating role, I will just give some insight as to those measures, which I think you will all be very interested in. The market is illiquid. It's not functioning properly because there is not enough supply of foreign exchange, and there are various reasons for that. The solution that Mr. President has put on the table is, number one, he has signed an executive order that effectively legally allows, under forbearance, all the cash that is in the domestic economy to legally come into the formal money supply. People will be able to take the cash that they have and put it inside the system. Along with that, there's another executive order that allows the domestic issuance of foreign currency instruments so that they will have an incentive to provide that foreign exchange from whatever source into income-bearing instruments. Alongside that, there is as part of the a wider sort of review, there is a revamping of the foreign exchange market such that, and the details are available, and I just don't want to go through it step by step, and I'm sure a frequently asked questions sheet will be put out in due course. The foreign exchange market will be simplified, it will be digitalized, and it will be reformed such that all legal and legitimate transactions will fall within the purview of the authorities and a formal market. Anything outside that will be illegal and will be a criminal offense and will be punished. And it will be robustly followed up, so that if you want to pay school fees, if you want to pay a health bill, it will be simplified, and you will be able to just provide perhaps an identity such as a BVN, NIN, and you'll do your transaction. It will be formal, but you'll be a price taker. Right now, the tail is wagging the dog. A marginal transaction by you to pay school fees will not now change the foreign exchange rate, because that will be determined just like in a stock exchange. You cannot go and buy 1,000 shares in flour mills at the end of the day and then move the rate by 10%, 15%. It doesn't happen like that. A market has rules, regulations, it has price discovery, and it has price setting terms. So the foreign exchange market, whether you are dealing through a bank, whether you are dealing through a bureau de change, whether you are dealing through an app, as we all know, the apps, the technology has taken root and it's a big part of the market. All that will be within the formal market, and we expect with that liquidity will come. But in addition, from supply of foreign exchange from NNPC increased production, reduced expenditure from transactions such as forward sales, from our discussions with sovereign wealth funds that are ready to invest and front load, provide advance funding alongside that investment. There is a line of sight on $10 billion worth of inflow of foreign exchange in a relatively near future, in weeks rather than months. These measures, taken as a whole and comprehensively, should lead to the flow of foreign exchange. As we know, remittance transactions are now done offshore. They are not coming into the market. I think, I hope I've said enough to answer the question, deal with the elephant in the room, and give you the confidence that will begin, or rather make statements that will begin to restore the confidence that we need to have the foreign exchange market work efficiently and with a high level of liquidity. Over to the Governor of Central Bank. Thank you.
I was going to say that. Thank you, Honorable Minister. So, CBN Governor would like to welcome you.
Thank you.
Sorry we have ambushed you to come on stage. Probably not prepared, but I know you're capable. So we will ask you, following up on the statement from the coordinating minister, we are private sector. We are worried about foreign exchange. And it is the elephant in the room. In addition to the, I would say, the free fall we've seen in the last few weeks, we see where our exchange rate is today. And it's a real concern. It's a concern for any business person because we're not able to project, particularly where you have inputs that has to do with foreign exchange or foreign component. And even though we've heard that the president told us earlier on today before he left that all the faults will be cleared. And he gave an assurance that this administration will honor the liabilities that you met in office, all of them. When can we expect to see this backlog cleared? What are you doing specifically as the central bank to, I will not say to protect the Naira because we want a free economy, but using monetary tools, how can you safeguard what we're witnessing today as the central bank? And I suppose going forward we'll be expecting to see a central bank which may have a different way of operating, because this, I believe, is your first outing with private sector. In closing, if you could just tell us what to expect during your tenure as the CBN governor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for those of you that ambushed me and put me here today, I've written down your names. The last thing I would want to do is talk about foreign exchange and the foreign exchange market in isolation. If I did this, I would be shortchanging the narrative. I would be shortchanging the narrative. And if I could just crave your indulgence to say a few things, and then I will try and address the questions you asked. Now, happily, we have a situation where the bleeding with respect to Nigeria's resources have stopped. And I refer specifically to the subsidy. to the subsidy. And to be honest, when people say they are concerned, yeah, I get it. But frankly, I think that was the time to be concerned. Right now, from what I can see, we are on the path of rebuilding. And that is so important for us on the monetary side. If the fiscal is bleeding, it makes life very difficult for us on the monetary side. So to the extent that that has stopped, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It isn't anything for anybody to take lightly. It isn't. This is something that we've tried to do for successive years and failed. And the result of not doing it, we've all seen. We've all seen it. And now, suddenly, it has stopped. In addition to that, the attempt at unification of the foreign exchange market, fine, not by any means perfect, but at least substantial more revenues have come in. So the combination of those two things, in addition to some of the other efforts that are being done on the fiscal side, well, let me not say, they can talk about it for themselves, and maybe some of these things I shouldn't be saying, I don't know. But in any case, commendable. That's all I will say. Commendable. Commendable. And in due course, we will see the outcome. So when people say they are concerned, they are worried, they are this thing, I think the time to do that, quite frankly, has gone. It has gone. The time when we're rebuilding is not the time for you to be running anywhere. It's really not. There are more difficult decisions to be made, no question about it. But the two very difficult decisions, painful, they've been taken, and now it is a question of managing things till we get to where we really want to get to. And that's where we really want to get to is a place where we have a foreign exchange market that is fit for purpose. A foreign exchange market that works for everybody. A foreign exchange market where you know the rules. A foreign exchange market where there are no policy flip-flops. A foreign exchange market where you can predict. That's the bigger deal. That is what we need to do. If we're going to be able to create an ecosystem that will outsurvive us all and we will go to sleep on, we've got to do some basic things, some of which we're already attempting to do, although it's early days, but we're doing them. For example, and I've just alluded to something, which is that we do need to have a situation where the rules are clear to all that engage in that business. And we're going to come out with that. We're going to come out with an elegant document that will tell you exactly what the rules are. So, I understand the issues with respect to people feeling some discomfort with the way the market has gone of recent. But my sense is that we will come out with something that is representative of the true market, because the market itself, over time, will adjust to some of these things. And I'm happy, to be frank, and I must share this, that we have had an enormous amount of interest from foreign portfolio investors, foreign stakeholders who really and truly are interested in continuing to engage with Nigeria. And the reason, of course, is they can see where this is all going to. So I just want to, by conclusion, and I know I've run out of time, but by way of conclusion, I just want to say, yes, absolutely right. You're going to find a central bank that, going forward, would take its objective of price stability very seriously indeed.
Thank you very much, CBN Governor. So, Coordinating Minister, I'll come back to you. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I think we can delve further into most of these issues when we go to the breakout session. But in closing, you have mentioned 2 executive orders that we expect. Have those executive orders been signed? Where can we find them? Are the details out already? Because you've touched on what they represent. And I think the audience will just like to know when to expect those executive orders out in public. And once you're done, we'll take a 1-minute closing statement from each panelist, because we're running out of time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The executive orders were signed by Mr. President, I think last Thursday. They'll be processed and gazetted. I've already said what the import of them is. And I must say it is partnership with the private sector that has delivered these solutions. And even the other, some of the other solutions that I alluded to as to, you know, improving the whole ecosystem of the foreign exchange markets, as Mr. Governor of Central Bank mentioned. It is partnership, it is consultation that has brought forward these solutions. And finally, and you can even take it as my closing statement, that Mr. President's commitment is to work with the private sector. His source of financing for growth is the private sector. Around the world, at the World Bank meetings, the emphasis was on dealing with the shocks that have led to low growth and high inflation. The developed world is only interested in fighting inflation. That they see, the central bank see it as their core mandate. Interest rates will remain high. It is partnership with the private sector, their money, their ingenuity, their ideas that will be used to propel the Nigerian economy and other developing economies. There is nothing out there for us except private capital. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. May I ask the Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning to give us your closing statements?
Thank you once again, Amina. And just having heard from the Governor of the Central Bank, especially the bit that to provide certainty and the rules. And for the wider economy, we are committed to a plan. We are committed to a budget based on plan so that everyone can be clear and be certain about what the policies are. We are going to generate, either put more money in the budget or generate more investment in the 8 priority areas of the government so that we can say with certainty that security will improve, agriculture and food security will be enhanced, inclusivity will be achieved by providing access to capital, generating economic growth, and supporting rule of law. There's a line of sight. We are very clear and we are confident that with the commitment we are seeing from the private sector and the renewed energy around the government, we are confident to chart that course. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister of State Agric.
Thank you very much. I think for us, like we said, food security is a priority. And so what we are doing in the ministry is to ensure that we are going to increase availability of food. We are going to also do those things that will ensure that at the end of the day, along with other actors within the economy, because there are those whose action also impact on the price of food. So we want to see a situation where affordability is also guaranteed and food is also accessible within the ambit of getting products from the farm to be evacuated to market. And of course, one very, very important component of it is the issue of nutrition and the safety. We are taking that very seriously. We have a full department that is dealing with food and nutrition. And if you look at the stock of malnourishment and undernutrition in this country, you know that especially among the infants and pregnant women, this is something very important. And I think the private sector has a lot of road to do here in terms of biofortification of foods and the like. We are all looking at this, but most importantly, we want to do that on a very sustainable basis, meaning that we will be using the best technology to maximize our output and reduce the footprint in terms of our operation as a country.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, may we have a round of applause for the Honorable Ministers and the CBN Governor. We will go to breakout sessions now, but before we leave, I'd like to thank my panelists. It's been a very engaging conversation, and we look forward to carrying on the conversation at the various breakouts. We know we have to release you now, but we really do appreciate the dedication that you have shown to the NESG, particularly in arriving at this day. It's been tough, but we truly, truly appreciate the consistency and the dedication and partnership we've witnessed from all the ministers and the CBN governor. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
So I would like to invite the chairman and two other vice chairmen that are seated